Oh, hello. Hello, hello. And good evening, VOD watchers. Hopefully this time, my microphone is picking up. It says it is. Check the properties. It's, yep, colon per microphone. Looks good. I'm paranoid ever since last time. Like, you better give me that audio. God damn you. Alright. Trusting that OBS is picking up, even though I'm looking right at the meter. It's going up and down properly. I'm on the right microphone. Either way, let's get into it, shall we? Hold on. Open mini player. That's the one. That's the one. Now, when we last left off, Johnny had just returned from Jund to Naya to find that his brother actually had been killed. And he was looking around to see who might have done it. Let's see here. Oops. Okay, yeah. And he comes to this cliffside where he finds Jazal, noted asshole, who always belittled him and treated him like shit. Anyway. You, said Johnny. He had walked all the way out to the cliffs, the piece of land that jutted over Hydra's tail chasm. Tenok sat there, his back to Johnny, facing out over the cliffside. That's it, Tenok. His name's Tenok, excuse me. Jazal was... it was Johnny's brother. Mixing up names, sorry. It was a common place for members of Johnny's pride to come and reflect. Speaking of reflection, there's Jazal. Stringy-haired baby man. Tenok didn't turn around. So you're back. I didn't think you'd show your face around here again. You did this. Admit it. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. Johnny's eyes narrowed. He snarled at Tenok's back. You've always envied Jazal, and you've always hated me. You waited until you had the night watch, and you assassinated my brother. Oh, goddammit, what the fuck? No. That's not what I wanted. I forgot to take it off of shuffle. Come on. There we go. That's better. Anyway. Johnny is confronting Tenok. Tenok turned and stood. He cocked an eyebrow at Johnny's appearance, covered in the ashes of Jazal's funeral pyre, but made no mention of it. How could I have killed him? The creatures that attacked the den were summoned by magic. Dark magic. That's nothing I could muster, and you know it. Maybe not, but I know you're behind it somehow. You're the one who stands to gain the most from Jazal's death, and now, right before the meeting of the council, here you are with an open seat waiting for you. Confess, and I won't... Tenok's eyebrows did a sarcastic little dance. You won't what? Oh, white fur, for shame! You're no murderer. This is no territory for you, this little mission of revenge. I'm sorry for the Ka's death, I truly am, and I'm as shocked as you are that this all happened. It's rattled the pride down to its core, and the oldsters are wondering whether it's even worth it to stay here. Even if I do become Ka, it'll be chaos for me to try to calm everybody down, to convince everyone to remain here in the valley. Stop evading, Tenok scowled. Oh, no. Johnny said stop evading. Tenok scowled. What I stand to gain from this situation is none of your concern. You're not brother to the Ka anymore, so it's the business of the elders now. Go back to your den. Polish your warrior trophies if you have any, and say if you really want to concern yourself with my appointment as Ka, you may want to impress me. I might just make you my chief advisor. You could sit at my side rather than getting chased out in the woods by superstitious humans. Ajani snarled, and Tenok backed up instinctively. His back foot came perilously close to the cliff's edge and pushed a few pebbles over the edge. Tenok glanced down at them. The pebbles fell for a long moment, bouncing occasionally off rocky outcroppings before disappearing into the depths of the chasm. You'll never be Ka of this pride, said Ajani. Be smart about this, Ajani. I'm offering you... What the hell? No. Turn off fucking shuffle, for God's sake. Come on, Spoofy. Right there. It's where I want it, fucking ass. Anyway. Where are we? Johnny snarled, depths of the chasms. Be smart about this, Ajani. I'm offering you a place among us. You can benefit from this, or you can choose to be obstinate and you can watch your life of relative privilege, considering your condition, come to an end. Ajani's claws were deep in Tenok's tunic in an instant. Lifting him up at arm's length, Tenok's feet dangled over the cliff's edge. You dare threaten me? Ajani, wait, you're hearing me wrong. I didn't mean it like that. I'm upset about your brother, and it's all coming out wrong. Let's think this through. He looked down and saw only air below him. He looked back at Ajani. The pride will always be a place for you, Ajani. You'll always be welcome with us. We'll adopt you just like you were our own. You know we see great things in you, just like Jazal did. Enough, said Ajani. I don't want to hear any more excuses. I want to hear facts. I want to hear what you know about the murder. Listen, put me down and we'll talk all you want about. Better tell me what I want to hear now. My arms are getting tired, and Jazal isn't here to guide my morals. Tenok's tunic tore, dropping him a crucial few inches. I was warned, Tenok yelped. Someone told me to stay far away from the village that night, but I ignored them. I should have run away. Who was it? Ajani roared. He jerked on Tenok's clothing, and it tore another few inches. Tell me, Tenok, or I'll let you fall as you deserve to. My mother! Squeaked Tenok. Don't drop me. Mother knew something was coming. She told me, but she didn't plan it. I know it. She couldn't have. It was something else. She didn't do it. I swear, Ajani. She just told me to get away, and told me it was going to be my time to lead the pride. Please, let me go. I don't know anything else. Fire burned in Ajani's arms. The feeling spread throughout his mind. Oh, I'll let you go, all right. Tenok felt so heavy. Ajani's muscles quivered. His fingers longed to let go, so that Tenok would slip out of his hands and fall away, out of the pride and out of his life. Tenok had been a burden on the pride his whole life, and was clearly the benefactor of Jazal's death. He was in Ajani's debt. It would be so easy just to drop him. So he did. As Ajani dropped Tenok off the cliff... Where are we? Tenok's claw grabbed onto Ajani's arm and pulled him down. Tenok's weight yanked Ajani off his feet and pulled him over the edge along with the other Nakatl. The two tumbled in space for a sickening moment until Tenok's jerkin caught on the cliff's edge. Ajani caught Tenok's leg and swung around, slamming into the cliffside. Pebbles dropped into the cloud jungle whiteness below. Tenok, do you have a good hold? Ajani said, speaking carefully and trying not to budge. Let go of my foot, Tenok managed. He twitched his leg. Tenok, stop. I can help us, but you have to hold on tight and don't move. What's going on, my flicky friend? I'm doing all right, Samantha. We're reading through more of the Alara Unbroken novel. I'm losing my grip. I'm going to fall, said Tenok. Just hold on. If I can just concentrate, I can... Good riddance, said Tenok, and kicked hard with the leg that Ajani was holding onto. Ajani's fingers slipped, and he fell. End of chapter. And we return to the plain of Bant. which is right here. And while you're looking at that, I'm going to drink some of my peace tea. Okay. ELSPETH Tyrell was a planeswalker with no desire to planeswalk. And ELSPETH is right here. Her own world was a place of nightmarish suffering. Even as a child, she had tried to fight back against the evils there. What she could not fight, she endured. When she could no longer endure, she broke. And when she broke, her planeswalker spark ignited, giving her the gift she desperately needed. The means to leave, never to return. An infinity of worlds were at her disposal, yet she chose quickly. She had only visited a few planes when she came upon Bant. But arriving there, still in her youth, she immediately knew she was home. No orphan had ever been so happy. Life made sense on Bant. The fields and olive orchards were sun-soaked and serene. The sky held the promise of the watchful eyes of angels. The sea lapped at the shores of the 5 noble nations. On Bant, she could leave her planeswalker nature behind, forget that there were ever any other planes, and revel in the world's embrace. She never spoke of the existence of other worlds to anyone. It was her private gesture of gratitude to her adopted home, to maintain its innocence. Bant was paradise. There was no need to expose its denizens to the strife and torture that abounded beyond its borders. She need only live her life as a young girl and pursue her new passion, knighthood. ELSPETH found that she took it naturally. Not took to it, just took it. As she unsheathed her Valoron-crafted steel, it felt good in her hands. The leather of the hilt had indented in all the right places to mold around her palms, and the straps had stretched to line up with her fingers. Her palms had changed to fit its contours, too. She had never studied swordplay long enough on any plane to develop calluses, but she had them on Bant. They were coarse and bumpy, and she was proud of them. They were not rough, nor did they get everywhere. She turned and brought the steel to bear, facing the older knights all around her. Her caste equals, but her rank subordinates. "Let's have another," she said. Knight Mardis, your turn." "Yes, Knight Captain," said Mardis. "Go get him, Mardis! Avenge us!" the other knights cheered. ELSPETH circled Mardis, watching his form. He was quite a bit older, fully a man, and had spent more years in the saddle than she had walking upright. He probably thought her just a child, but she saw beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead. It wasn't going to be easy overcoming his greater weight and strength, especially without magic. She would have to look for an opening. Him sweating was a good start. "Bring your elbows in, Mardis," she said. "I can see daylight between your sword arm and your side. That's a flaw in your defenses." "Yes, Knight Captain." He took her seriously. "And watch your footwork. Don't stamp around and don't shuffle. Come up onto the balls of your feet." He looked down to check his foot position, and ELSPETH cut a sharp maneuver with her sword arm, snapping her blade against his helmet. He recoiled and parried it away, but it was far too late. His helmet rang like a bell. The other knights laughed and hooted. "She got you with the footwork! Come on, Mardis!" ELSPETH saw Knight Mardis' eyes narrow through his helmet. It was the right time, she thought. He would overcommit, and she'd have her chance to overcome his power with her quickness. The quickness. She flexed her fingers, letting the hilt of her sword slide into its most comfortable position, balanced in the crooks of her fingers, with her thumbs bearing the weight, lightly but surely. Her eyes watched Mardis's every movement as they arced around each other inside the ring of knights. A drop of sweat fell from his helmet. He lunged. She let him advance, giving his blade almost enough time to strike her pauldron, but then twisted her chin at the final moment, letting her body roll with it and rock with it and circle around his blade. Nope, period. His blade went by in a straight line, pulling Mardis with its momentum. As she twisted fully around to build her own, for an instant her opponent was out of sight, and then she slew him again, still lunging, but trying to recover his balance. It was enough. His center of gravity was thrown so far off that a single impact would fell him. When she swung her sword around, it clapped against his leg plate and swept his legs out from under him. His arms flailed as he collapsed, sending his sword flying straight up into the air. Knight Mardis bumped face first into the grass, not even trying to get up. His humiliation was complete. Well, hey there, Coy. It's been a while. You're just in time for me to continue reading a novel called Alara Unbroken. He doesn't see his sword, still tumbling end over end in the air above him, Elspeth realized. It's going to come right back down on him. Stupid Bant armor, no back protection, which is weird. Without thinking, she shouted a protection spell to save him. If that's a reference, I do not get it. Alara Unbroken, truth went unspoken, I even forgot to eat. Sure. Basic plot synopsis. It's a world that's been separated into 5 chunks, but it's been separated for so long that everyone alive now has forgotten it. Except for like a few people, and the main villain is a big old dragon who's trying to push those worlds together. And one of the main characters is a cat man named Johnny, who is an outcast in his pride. His brother's murdered. He blames a guy that's been bullying him for a while. He's knocked off a cliff, and we're in this next chapter, we're coming back to him. The person that we were just reading about was Elspeth, who is a planeswalker, who is a person who can jump between worlds. And she came from another world that's not from Alara, and stayed on the Shard of Bant. But now we're coming back to a Johnny as he has just fallen from a giant cliff. Johnny's eyes opened slowly. His mouth was dry. Had it been hanging open? Had he been asleep? How did she come to another world? Because she's a planeswalker. Alara is a plane in a multiverse for the storyline for Magic the Gathering, and this book is just one of the stories from the multiverse and whatnot. And there are special people who can teleport between these worlds or planes called planeswalkers. And Johnny recently became one. He's still figuring it out. That might be how he survived falling off the cliff. What time was it? What day was it? He slowly came to. He realized his body was in a heap on a rocky outcropping on the side of the cliff. The sun shone down on him. His right arm was lying at an odd angle across his chest, probably a dislocated shoulder. He lay on top of his left arm, which had most likely taken the brunt of the impact, and was certainly broken, probably in multiple places. His legs, were they even there? He tried to raise his head to look, but a wave of pain washed over him, so he didn't try any further. He tried to move his legs, but couldn't feel them. Was his back broken? If he was alive to ponder the question, he decided then it couldn't be. Still, he felt like a shattered toy. As long as he lay there, he strangely felt nothing. No pain, no shortness of breath. He mostly felt thirsty. How long had he lain there? Was he dehydrated, or had he lost blood? He couldn't see any blood from the position of his head, but it could have leaked out under him and dried already, or it could be ebbing out of his back as he lay there. With his eye position, he could see part way up the side of the cliff, but not to its top. He had fallen a sickening distance from what he could see. Why hadn't someone from the pride come for him. I pay 2 black men and 2 white to damage your voice and gain 2 Oh, that sounds like an uncard where you like force your opponent not to talk for a set number of turns or something. That'd be funny. That bastard Tenok, which was the bully that I mentioned previously, probably hadn't told anyone that he fell. He would have just returned to the den and acted like nothing had happened. No one would be coming for him, and that thug would take over. But Ajani couldn't let Tenok be Ka of the Pride. Couldn't let him take Jazal's place. Well, he's certainly going to take my place he's certainly going to take my place if you lie there like that, said Jazal's voice. Jazal is his brother, by the way. My body's broken, said Ajani. What else do you suggest I do? Nothing. Just lie there. Let your life seep into the rocks. Let your skin shrivel away from your bones under the sun, and let the plants grow up through your ribcage. It is tempting. Yes, it is. So why don't you just give in? Shut up, said Ajani. No, really, why not just let yourself rot here? Fertilize the world with your corpse. That's better than the progress you've made so far. You're getting on my nerves, spirit. So then, what's your plan? Give me a minute to think. The pain is coming back. Why don't you just mend yourself? You were always my best healer. I've tried. It doesn't work like that for me. It's like when the humans hunt me, remember? I remember. Hunted me, I remember. I found you wounded and outmatched, despite you being perfectly capable of handling those foolish creatures on your own. I couldn't do it I couldn't do it alone. I couldn't bring out my own self or mend my own wounds. It's just never worked like that. I could always see the light inside you, though. I could feel the way the threads ran and could set them right when they were arranged incorrectly. I could never see the inside of myself. I'm opaque to my own eyes. You have all the power inside you, Ajani, and you're telling me none of it will help you here when you're stranded on a cliff? Sorry to disappoint you, brother. No, you never did. Ajani closed his eyes. He had one option. Jazala, Jermaine, no. I do have a picture of Jazal, though. It's Jazal. I got visuals. There's Jazal. There we go. Yeah. See, his brother's regular, and he was the Ka, or leader, of his clan. Can't heal himself? Boo, bullshit. He just wanted to make himself less OP. Right? Alrighty. Meow. We return to the plane of Bant. To Elspeth. Martis' sword came down end over end and hit him directly square in the back, between his shoulder blades, point first. The sound was sickening as it punctured deep enough to stop only when it pierced the ground beneath him. The knights yelled and descended on their comrade. "Get off him! Move!" Elspeth shouted. Surprised by her sudden authority, they startled and moved back. She stepped forward and grabbed the sword, yanking it straight up out of him. There was a clean slit in his jerkin, but no wound. The other knights gasped. Martis coughed and rolled over. He took off his helmet, puzzled at their faces. "What happened?" he said. "Are you all right? You must be hurt. We need a healer." The others crowded around looking for a wound, but found none. They looked at Elspeth. "Lucky man," she said to them. "Just missed the skin." She held Martis' sword. It had no blood on it, but the point was barely blackened by having been stuck in the earth. They were dumbfounded. Martis rolled over, trying to crane his neck to see his back. I will record your voice and add some AI-generated image of cats and make a... It's just an AI meme meowing over and over. That's dumb as hell. That was strange. You did something, said Martis. What did you do, Knight Captain? You shouted something. Was that a spell? You know I'm no wizard, she said. It was just a fluke. The sword must have only grazed you, and that's the end of it. She stomped off. Well, there goes a training day, she thought, and possibly her secret with it. The others had no idea she was a planeswalker, or that there even were other planes, and it was her sole intention to keep it that way. It was the only way to protect her adopted home. Her spell would not have been unusual on Bant, but her deception about her abilities would be. She had never displayed the use of even basic magic before, and therefore had risen through sigilled cast rather than the spell-wielding sighted. She was afraid her dishonesty would raise enough suspicion to jeopardize her deeper secrets. With her luck, one afternoon's sparring accident would lead to an avalanche of revelations, none of which that particular plane was prepared for. If she wasn't careful, all of Bant would know the truth, that Bant was only a tiny bright spot in a terrifying multiverse of benighted worlds. Her paradise, her chosen home, would lose its uncontaminated ignorance, and then she would lose everything else. Knight Captain! She wouldn't let that happen. No more planeswalking. None of the dark multiverse's claws would reach the little bright world of Bant. She would protect its innocence for it. She who first planeswalked here from her birth world as a mere child. She who endured years of torture in the clutches of the worst the multiverse had to offer. She who would stand between all the pain and Bant personally. ELSPETH! No, I didn't say Ben Shapiro. Also, fuck Ben Shapiro. Yeah, ELSPETH! She turned. What is it? She demanded. The knights were pointing to a small hill. ELSPETH could see a large creature. A person, but a person who appeared to be covered in light-colored fur, lying prone on the grass. Someone has just appeared, said Knight Martis. No, thought ELSPETH. Get your spike, no, get your pikes, she said. A little bit of time passes. Yeah, that's better. Ben 10. Love Ben 10. Great show. Ajani had no destination in mind for his planeswalk. He had no sense of aim or control. He didn't know if he was even capable of consciously influencing where he traveled, or whether some strange laws within or without him governed the entire experience. Perhaps the power would take him to Zaliki, who could mend his wounds, or perhaps it would take him to the world of volcanoes, where he could perish in fire. Either way, he knew he would die if he just lay next to the cliff, so he willed his mind, his broken body, and his soul to go. The sensation was like being shoved through a plate of glass, except that the splinters tore at the inside of his skin instead of the outside. His heart tried to pound, but it didn't know which direction to expand into, so it squeezed painfully in on itself instead. Johnny's lungs burned, and he wasn't sure if he was breathing in something awful or failing to breathe anything at all. His sense of up and down betrayed him, and he had the sensation of being flung end over end without moving at all. The sense of movement was incredible. Oh, that's right, we're back to Ajani. Sense of up and down betrayed him, and he had the sensation of being flung end over end without moving at all. The sense of movement was incredible. He knew that because of the sudden jolt when it stopped upon his arrival. He was slammed into something, a gently sloped hill, as if at extreme velocity. He waited moment after sickening moment for the residual sensation of motion to finally pass. The air smelled strange. It was the lack of moisture in the air, he decided, and different plants, and the grass was softer, sweeter. He rolled roughly onto his side, allowing the sky to rotate into view. It was impossibly bright, a blue canopy patched with small scudding clouds, and lit by the blinding disk of a sun. The air was brisk, but that sun warmed him. Whatever world it was, its beauty was effortless, sweeping, and welcoming. Ajani was sick on the grass. Alara Unbroken, also known as the Jar. What the hell are you talking about, Koi? That has nothing to do with anything. Alright. I'm doing sitting on jar reference. What do you mean one man, one jar? That thing from like 15 or more years ago? That guy did not die, by the way. He's alive. Elspeth couldn't believe what she was seeing. Neither could her fellow knights, judging by their panicked reactions. "You there, whatever you are, don't move," said Knight Martis, pointing a spear directly at the Catman. "You so much as twitch a muscle and we'll run you through." The Catman, who lay on the grass before them, was easily 2 feet taller than Elspeth or the other knights, covered in a coat of fine golden white fur, streaked with soot and blood. His face was like a leotau, the noble beast ridden by knights, but with an expression of pained intelligence, framed by a regal mane. Large pieces of curving bronze armor covered his shoulders, and he wore a simple jerkin of rough green cloth. He had a tail. I know he is alive. He's my father. You're Johnny's son? Hilarious. I guess. I don't know. It's just kind of a nonsensical bit. Let's see. Elspeth hadn't seen a leonin before, but she had heard of such creatures in her travels. They were bigger than she had expected, and wider of fur. Of course, there were no leonin on Bant. "Demon!" said one of the knights. The other knights pointed their pikes right at the Catman's face. "Stay those weapons," ordered Elspeth. The Catman turned his eyes up at her and groaned. He seemed to have trouble looking into the sun, and his limbs looked badly injured. She noticed that he had a scar across one of his eyes. He looked deep into the beast's good eye, deep enough to feel a sense of falling. He was a kindred soul. He was not just an injured stranger. He was a falling star, one who was born and who had suffered on another world. He was a planeswalker. Hilarious, he kind of, with his in a completely unamused and serious voice. Correct. Correct. "Leave us," she said. Knight Captain, I don't think that's such a good... Head back to the castle, get clerics, whoever you can find, and a body sling. Make haste! Right away." There was a jangle of reins, a squeak of saddle leather, and a crunching of hooves on gravel, and the other knights were off. The Catman blinked up at her. Then his muscles seemed to relax. His eyelids settled shut. "I'm not sure you can understand this or even hear this," said Elspeth, "but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. You've arrived. You've made it off the tortured world, and I'd like to be the first to congratulate you. You're too late for that." "Oh, you're too late for that," the creature muttered. "You've made it," continued Elspeth. "Whatever place you were in before, whatever world did all this to you, your suffering is now over. You've come to paradise, a plain called Bant." She knelt down near Johnny's head. "They'll take care of you here, even if you're an outsider. They'll accept you for who you are. You can leave behind your fears and memories of the evils that went before." The Catman's eyes opened briefly and then fluttered closed again. He appeared to be having a hard time holding onto consciousness. "Lie still. Help will be coming soon. Though I'm young, I've spent time on several worlds. None has been so perfect, so welcoming as this. For the first time, I've found a place I can love and trust. I belong here, and you will too. You'll be able to do what you've always wanted, like I have." The leonin stirred. Johnny said something, but his voice was too low to hear. "What?" said Elspeth. "Yes, you can tell me. What is it that you want to do here?" "Leave," said Johnny. Paradise place called Bent. Big Bent in London. No, it's with an A. Bant. It's like band with a T. Band. Bant. Johnny tried not to groan. The healers had used more needle and thread than the young human woman had told him, and less magic. Every day they would rewrap his left arm and dress his wounds anew, and say a few low chants. The wounds were closing day by day, and his bones were knitting, but his pain went largely untreated. In the jungle, Johnny thought they would make a bitter drink from the sap of the wandili frond, and the pain would be gone as he healed. But his caretakers seemed to regard the pain as good for his progress. They used his pain diagnostically, prodding him in places they knew would hurt, just to gauge the degree of his reaction. At times, he reacted very badly. His caretakers, along with the rest of the people on the world, spoke in a strange dialect. It was unfamiliar and droning to his ears, but understandable, which surprised him. It was as if their language and Johnny's own had been birth brothers, twins that had become isolated from each other, and had grown up segregated for so long that they were almost strangers to one another. He often had to repeat himself several times to be understood, which led him to use only simple words. He felt like an idiot doing that, so most of the time he said nothing. The clerics brought him what they thought his body needed, and he didn't argue. Band is one of the so-called green villages, Dutch Grootdorpen, in the Dutch province of Flevoland. It is a part of the municipality of Noorderspolder. It lies about 7 kilometers north of Emmeloord, Netherlands, right? What the fuck? You just kind of like make up your own world in like 2 seconds? Hilarious if so. Where are we? They fed him strange things. He ate salty gourds and cakes made from coarse grains. There were fruits, but they weren't the succulent jungle fruits that he was used to. Most of them were hardy and fibrous, with tough skins. He tried one and stopped trying. He relished the meat they brought, but wondered what strange animals it might be made from. He saw the knight's steeds, hooved quadrupedal cats. They looked like ancient pack beast versions of his own family. He tried talking to one once, but it didn't meet his gaze, and doing so only caused the knights nearby to snicker. Johnny felt overwhelming pity for the creatures, seeing them harnessed and saddled as they were. He wondered what the humans would think about some of the slow-witted ape-like behemoths of his own world. The horizons took the most getting used to. There were no large mountains and hardly any trees to interrupt the view, so the world seemed to go on and on. The sky was an overwhelming dome of relentless blue, rarely obscured by foliage, and he never failed to be dazzled by the luminous sea. Buildings soared, more shrines to winged women than there were residents. Oh, that's right. The buildings soared, more shrines to winged women than they were residences, so vertical as to be seemingly weightless. He expected there to be graffiti along the base of them, or at least creeping vines running up their steep sides, like the human-made buildings in his native jungles. There weren't. Everything looked pristine. Johnny had frequent childish urges to smear mud on things, just to mess them up a little. The human Elspeth pushed him the most. She wanted him to walk again, so that he could see all the things that enthralled her about Bant. She was a planeswalker, like he was himself, and like Sarkhan had been, but seemed committed never to leave the world she had come upon. Do the others know that there are other worlds? He asked her one day. It's a real village in Netherlands, so Bant is heaven, Willem Alexander Klaus George Ferdinand, the King of Netherlands is God. I will have to make some cult. Please don't make a cult. That's weird. That's weird behavior. Okay. No, said Elspeth, that I will never tell them. That I will never tell them. I only hope they don't find out on their own. How could they do that? I didn't know myself until a short time ago. Well, you're a bad precedent, for example. But I'm a traveler from the nation of Jess, was it? A poor lie on my part. Jessian refugees travel here frequently, and they look nothing like you. You could have just killed me. That's not what we do here. Although I think some of my knights were tempted, although I think some of my knights were tempted. And anyway, even dead, you would still have been hard to explain. If you're going to be evidence of something strange, you might as well be alive to prove you're nothing to worry about. How could you be sure I wouldn't tear everybody's throats out? She chuckled, looking over all of his bandages. I've been meaning to thank you for that. Johnny frowned. I'm still a threat. Maybe not with my claws, but a threat to what your people think and believe. It's true, that's why you haven't gone far without me. And I handpicked the clerics who've been taking care of you. Did you know that? They're all people I trust, people who I know won't take your wild tales too seriously, or spread them around should you tell any. I haven't. Thank you. I'm happy you've been so comfortable here. Who says I've been comfortable? Well, aren't you? The clerics say you've been an agreeable patient. They're excited to treat you. Even you. Oh wait, what? Oh, even you should hear the way they talk about you. I'd say you were doing some magic on them if they weren't apparently made so happy by it. You can't judge me. You didn't finish your life yet. I can't judge you because I'm not dead yet. What are you talking about, Koi? I will make the cult and burn oranges soaked in banana vodka as a sacrifice. I mean, that's one way to do it, I guess. You're not hurting anyone else. And you're not manipulating people or whatever the fuck. They're good people for humans. It's no magic, but I'm only here because I can barely move, and because there's no better help back on my world. I've told you, I don't intend to stay. When my wounds disappear, so will I. And I've told you, you need to stay away from that world. You'll just be inviting whatever happened to you there to happen again. Stay, I could always use another night. He had to admit it was nice to be part of a family. He wasn't treated as a freak on Bant, white fur or no, and at least the humans didn't seem inclined to hunt him. Yeah. But as far as he could tell, he was the only Nakatl. Jazal's voice hadn't spoken to him at all since his planeswalk, and which put him on edge. He had to go back. I can't stay, said Ajani. You know you're torturing yourself won't fix anything, said Elspeth. It'll just cause your gifts to be wasted. You don't understand. There are things I need to do. Oh, I understand. You're an idiot. You're anxious to be away, to throw away all you've lucked into. Elspeth, wait. In his bandages, Ajani couldn't stop her. She walked away. Older ladies will pay me money to get blessing or some other magic sticks. Then I will escape to Tajikistan with the money and no one will do anything to me. Yeah. You'll flee like a coward. Like all those fancy cult leaders. You'll trick people out of a bunch of money and then flee. Claiming your planet needs you. Anyway. A Rock's monk led the chant. A circle of human clerics repeated after him. Ajani just lay still in the center. Their benevolence was embarrassing, but the healing was necessary. Oh, no. There it is. When the world's body shakes, the hand of Asha is steady, intoned the monk in a full-bodied acrostan accent. The clerics repeated his words verse by verse. When the world's head burns, the hand of Asha is cool. When the world's stomach churns, the hand of Asha is soothing. It was a prayer of healing, but unsettlingly dressed in the language of apocalypse. It made Ajani think of his vision during his planeswalk, of the 5 worlds, their edges blurring in the seething aether, their colors bleeding together. Was there truth in what he saw? Were the 5 worlds, including Elspeth's and his own, becoming somehow one? He tried to brush the thought away. Worry about your wounds, he thought. Keep it simple. Focus on what you can actually change. But the chant was so rhythmic. Hold up. I don't know why Space Boy just does 17-minute songs where the first 5 minutes are the actual song and then the rest is just silence. There we go. I'm a fucking genius. I'm a god. I have money. I have watches, defrauded state farms, and Coolvin Clean trademark panties. And Coolvin Clean trademark. I really hope someone makes a line of underwear that's super cheap, but super high quality, but super cheap, price-wise, and then call it Coolvin Clean, just to sound as close to Calvin Klein as they can. Oh, that'd be so funny. Alright. But the chant was so rhythmic and its imagery so evocative that Johnny's mind strayed. He found himself visualizing the end times described in the prayer, a time of strife and cultural and geological upheaval. He imagined clashes of armies too vast to number, and great swaths of civilization swept under a deluge of destruction. He saw mages both familiar and strange, offering up feeble spells to the tide of war, draining their souls to conjure magics powerful enough to stop the monstrosity of war. He saw young soldiers take up arms and rally behind banners of hope. He saw creatures of every ilk massing at continental frontiers, gracing for the charge of a blast of evil. But in the end, it all came to nothing. Legions perished, mighty leaders fell, spells fell impotent against the surge of power that rushed outward from something. The hand of Asha is gentle, finished the monk, and the clerics repeated the final line of the chant after him. The abrupt silence of the end of the chant jarred Johnny out of his reverie. He sat up, stretching his muscles that hadn't been flexed in many days. "That's all for today," said the monk to the other clerics. They took turns bowing and smiling at Johnny and filed out. "Thank you," said Johnny to them. "Thank you, my friend," said a feminine voice. Yeah, Abibas. Oh my god. Or Abubas. Oh, that'd be great. Abubas. Prince Abubu. Okay. The Rocks monk bowed to Elspeth at the door and left. Johnny looked up at her, still on the floor in the middle of the inscribed healing circle. "On my world, healing magic is faster, but it usually hurts more." "The hand of Asha is gentle," said Elspeth with a smile. "My spine wasn't fractured, is the latest news. I had cracked ribs and blood loss and damage in all kinds of bad places. They told me the whole list, but I lost track as they were speaking. But you should have seen me earlier. I was walking around. I'll be dancing in no time. That I would pay to see." "Elspeth, it's fine. No, I don't mean to seem ungrateful. I'm very grateful, and I'm sorry that I don't. It's all right. It's my fault for pushing the issue. You have your reasons. It's selfish for me to try to keep you here. You're of course free to go. If I had time, I would stay. There's so much I could learn here. I just have to get back to my life, back home. Things are difficult right now. I just don't have time to waste here." "Right, no time to waste. You understand. I have to get..." Oh, that's rude. "You have to get back. I mean, even a knight captain like you must feel attachments, things that call you to return home again." Her answer was quiet. "No. Never. Bant is my home now. Well, I wish it Wait, what? Oh, I wish it all the best." What is that supposed to mean? Nothing. I don't know. She's very fucking touchy about this. Lady, calm down. But also, Johnny's being a little bit too uncaring of his own shit. I don't know, it's a weird situation. Oh, wow. No, what is it? You meant something. Johnny stretched his muscles. The bandages pulled tight against the motion, but it felt good and strong to push himself again. I meant, I assume you know. Elspeth's face was blank. Maybe not, said Johnny. Have you seen what's around here? Have you seen the other parts of this world? Her eyes narrowed. What do you mean, other parts? I know there are other worlds. No, I mean there are other worlds connected with this one. Each one different. I felt it on my way here. Yours, mine, and Elspeth's face was grave. What do you mean connected? I don't know what I mean. They seemed to move together, or belong together. When was the last time you traveled beyond here? Well, it's been over 2 years since I found Bant, and I haven't planeswalked at all since then. Oh, maybe since then they've... What? What have you seen? I should turn in. It's late. Tell me. Johnny sighed. Something is changing, I fear, he said. Our worlds are related in some sense. They're close. No, they couldn't be. If they were that near to each other, I would have sensed your world when I traveled here. And they're growing closer. The first time when I went to one of the others, the world called Jund. What others? Johnny looked at her blankly. The other planes. There are 5 of them. Your world, my own, and 3 others. 5? 5 worlds all in a cluster, creeping toward one another, blurring their edges among one another. I believe they are colliding, Elspeth. The 5 worlds, Naya, Bant, Jund, and 2 others are becoming one. You, as a planeswalker, must know this. Stop it. What? I'm not amused by this little game of yours. It's not a game, Elspeth. I'm telling you the truth. I said stop it. Oh my god, lady. Denial's not just a river in Egypt. Lady, calm down. What do you have, a period? I did not say that. I did not mention the period. Fuck off. Okay, let's see. Oh, look for yourself if you want. Look for yourself. If you want to lie to yourself and hide from it, that's your right. But things are coming to pass. I don't pretend to understand them, but I don't think they're going to be good. That's why I'm in such a hurry to return. I have to get back to my family before they occur. Elspeth was staring at the ground. Her breath seemed heavier. Her mouth looked like she was whispering something, but no sound came. I'm watching with my grandparents. Why are you watching with your grandparents? Hi, Koi's grandparents. He makes weird jokes a lot. I don't know why. Elspeth shook her head. Oh. Her mouth looked like she was whispering something, but no sound came. Look, if I can help in any way... Elspeth shook her head. It's late, Johnny said. I should get back to my room. Thank you for all your help. She didn't hear him leave. For a long while she just stared at the floor, at the intricate tiled mosaic forming symbols of castles, sunbursts, and olive trees. Then her gaze slid up the wall to the main window in the little temple, a simple round window inlaid with stained glass. The glass portrayed one of the minor angels, a celebrant at best, rising up above a mass of impish creatures. The angel held out her hand in a calming gesture. Her fingers splayed out above the creatures' heads as they tore each other apart. She had probably seen the window hundreds of times, and each time had felt it signified a moment of peace, of the angel bringing tranquility of the battling beasts. But at that moment she saw it as a scene of hopelessness, a divine figure unable to end the machinations of war. When she went to Johnny's chamber to ask him about the changes he had seen, he had already gone. Stained bandages hung from an empty hammock in the wall next to the hammock. Oh, next to the hammock were 12 notches from a leonin's claw. It was a joke. Where's the joke at, brother? All you did was just lie. I'm watching my grandparents, not really. Where's the punchline, buddy? The planeswalk had taken a lot out of Johnny, but he had managed to end up where he wanted. He emerged in darkness, but it was comforting darkness. A cool cave interior swept with breezes of his native Anaya. It wasn't his own lair, and he didn't know how far he was from the den of his pride, but it would do. Drained, he slipped into a dream of a time long past. We wild Nakatl need to reach out, Jazal was saying. Reach into the white mists and enshroud the mountains. Reach into the white mists that enshroud the mountains, and touch the hands and minds of the cloud Nakatl on the other side. That mist is a blade. It divides us. It wounds us. Every day that we are two peoples instead of one. Johnny was rolling his eyes, trying to find anywhere else to look besides his brother, the droning Ka. Jazal wore a headdress of vibrant jungle flowers and carried a long, double-bladed axe. Other Nakatl danced around him in a circle, each holding the tail of the next. There's about 40 seconds until the next ad break, by the way. Watching with grandparents is punchline, they don't even speak English. Oh, Gotti! I guess. I don't know, I wanted to give your grandparents the benefit of the doubt. Who knows, they may fucking, speak English. I apparently can't, good God. Vicious chop. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna read until. Oh, jeez. I was looking for something and found my phone. Found my one opinion from school when I was 8 years old. The student is. Yeah, I'm not gonna put that in. I'll read it out, but I won't say the word. I was looking for something and I found my one opinion from school when I was 8 years old. The student is mentally handicapped and not very intelligent. Swag life. What the fuck? Yeah, I'm not gonna put that in chat, dude. What the fuck? Deny. Let's see. Oh, is it another bout of silence? Yep. Alrighty. Good evening, VOD watchers. Hope you're doing alright this evening. I actually managed to have a full sub job on Tuesday, but for some reason I haven't had any luck the rest of this week with sub jobs. Boo. I've been playing Ollie World. It's been really fun. I like it a lot more than the first two games. Holy shit, those games are stupidly hard, absurd, like the not fun kind of hard. At least the challenge in Ollie World is like doable, and you figure it out as you go. The first two Ollies, oh my god, absurdly hard. I'm still going back and forth between single player games and Final Fantasy XIV now. I feel like my number of finished games this year is going to be pretty small, just out of the number of times that I have beaten games this year. just because half of it is going to be spent playing Final Fantasy XIV. Although, whenever I finish the, what is it? Whenever I finish the, oh my god, I can't speak. Oh my, what the fuck? I cannot. I'm forgetting what I'm saying in mid-sentence. Good god. It's oh yeah, I'm hoping I can finish the rest of the storyline for 14 about halfway through this year. Maybe that'll not cut into my completion times for a bunch of other games so badly. I don't know. But either way, it's a fun game. I'm just vibing to the music at this point. It's so good. Boom, boom. Ooh, Fatal Fury. Just got an update from. I follow the official Nintendo YouTube channel, and it usually update. They usually post trailers of games that are either coming out or have just come out, and so that's how I'm able to keep up with like games that come out on Switch. Usually, some of them go under the radar. All right, we return to Naya. And Johnny is currently in a flashback. Johnny was rolling his eyes, trying to find anywhere else to look besides his brother, the droning Ka. Jazal wore a headdress of vibrant jungle flowers and carried a long double-bladed axe. Other Nakatl danced around him in a circle, each holding the tail of the next. The Nakatl were one race once, one unified tribe of cats across all of Naya. The revolutionary Marisi came and led us astray. He was wise in that he believed in the fundamental goodness of our wild hearts, but in breaking the coil, he broke with it everything that was good about its precepts. In its teachings, our souls were purified, our minds were fluid, full of ideas and magic. Marisi brought change, but at the price of rage. He brought revolution by way of destruction. The palaces of Antali are gone now, ruined and haunted in the high places beyond the mists. You can no longer go there, Johnny. Johnny started when he heard his name, and looked up to see Jazal swinging the double-bladed axe, and to see his colorful flower headdress melt into a red liquid. The circle of dancers sped up into frightening speed, tearing the ground with their claws as they danced and leered at Johnny. Jazal was still speaking, but Ajani couldn't hear his brother's garbled voice through the cascade of blood pouring down from the top of his head. It cascaded over his face, dripping into his eyes and streaking down his body. Then suddenly, Jazal began making thrashing motions with the double-bladed axe and yelling Ajani's name over and over again. I need to remove Gengar from my personage. It's getting too hot for some reason, even though it's probably like 26 degrees outside. Oh boy.
sitting position that'll keep my spine from being crushed and my back from hurting. Johnny woke, his heart pounding. His name was still echoing in his head. As he sat up, he realized the cool, dark cavern where he lay, although not his lair, was a familiar place. In the gloom, he saw the burnished blades of 2 axes leaning up against the cavern wall, one of a dark metal, its handle broken but repaired, and one a gleaming silver catching the light from the entrance despite the blood stains it bore. It was Jazal's lair. The axes were his and his brother's, identical but for their color. Let's see. "You'll never use this again, brother," said a Johnny, taking the silver blade. "It's yours now," said Jazal's voice. A Johnny took his own axe, rickety with its repaired handle. He held Jazal's axe head down, and with a quick blow sliced into the end of its handle. He unwrapped the bindings around his own axe head. The axe's original leather lashings were tight, mortared together with years of dust, resin, and blood, but they came apart little by little, spilling dried fragments of fragments of old battles onto the floor. There it is. The dark metal axe came loose, and Johnny turned it over in his hands. There were nicks and dents all over it, but overall the surface was still smooth. The metal held the records of so many moments with Jazal. "Isn't there something you should be remembering?" said Jazal's voice. "Tenok." Johnny remembered his words from before he traveled to Bant. The bastard Tenok had mentioned that his mother knew more about the night Jazal died. "I have to pay her a visit," he thought. The bindings around his axe head proved to be a single long leather string. He moved the axe head deep into the end of Jazal's handle. With a satisfying solidity, creating a double-headed axe, Johnny began the process of rewrapping the bindings, pulling each loop tight with little tugs that dug into his fingers. End of chapter.
Ooh, we're going back to Esper. Gonna close that one. Close Bant. Now let's see here. Esper. Ah, here it is. Esper. A world of metal and sinew and like cybery stuff. You'll see. The lighthouse at the cliffs of Ott was one of the most solitary and desolate places on Esper. The lighthouse keeper was an old Vidalcan mage, his Ethereum enhancements relatively minor and simple compared to the extensively filigreed archmages in Vectis or Palandius. He only had bracers of the metal built into his forearms and a bit more at the small of his back. Still, even that small amount of the alloy had extended his life a generation longer than his race historically lived. So when his assistant called to him saying that they not only had visitors but important dignitaries from the Vidalcan city of Palandius, he had an impressive stretch of years against which to compare the visit's peculiarity. Oh my god, itchy. Oh, the nose. Let's see if I can't find a bit of a better picture of Esper. Epser. That's a little better. think. Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, that's a little better. The lighthouse keeper lived a simple life on Esper. He didn't know what a planeswalker was, and he had never heard of such a creature as a dragon. Nevertheless, he was about to become an important part of the plans of the dragon planeswalker Nicol Bolas. Nicol Balls. His assistant's tone was clear. Sir, they're members of the Seekers of Camrot. Nope, Karmot, he said. The Seekers of Karmot were a relatively recent layer to the labyrinthine strata of the Esper magocracy, but a significant one. As the supply of Ethereum on Esper waned, the Seekers of Karmot urged the need for a large-scale search for the reddish stone known as Karmot, an essential ingredient in the creation of new Ethereum. Although some dismissed them as alarmists and doomsayers, the Seekers of Karmot had gained an almost religious following over the last decade or two. There is something on my fucking nose, and I don't know what the fuck it is, but it keeps making my nose itchy. And I don't like it. Come on. Ugh. That's bad. Whew. Where are we? The lighthouse keeper didn't know that the Seekers were secretly the minions of Bolas, but he did know that they were important dignitaries, and that a contingent of them wanted into the most remote lighthouse of the most desolate, barely navigable shoreline of the region of Ott. I should have paid more attention to the stars of late, muttered the lighthouse keeper. There must have been signs of the occasion written on the skies. Don't touch the door, I'll get it, he called as he descended the spiraling stairs. Meanwhile, I want you to shine up my orreries and astrolabes. I don't want to miss another event of this magnitude. Use the good cleansing spell, too. I don't want to hear them so much as squeak. He opened the door. My lords, please, come in, he said. There were 3 of them. 2 of them were Vidalcan mages, their skin hairless and bluish-gray, their Ethereum enhancements elaborate. The other was a tall, long-haired human man in strange garb. They said nothing, but handed him a small courier's capsule. He read the missive, and they walked around the lighthouse, measuring and murmuring to one another. According to the missive, the lighthouse was theirs for the next 3 days, and he was to become their teleman during that time. He knew what the word meant, but could only guess what it truly meant for him. What was clear was that his life was about to change dramatically. You can stop bothering with the orreries, he called up to his assistant. The assistant came down to him. Why? He said. The lighthouse keeper betrayed no emotions. In fact, your services will no longer be required. Please get your things and go. I don't understand. What are they shutting us down? I told you. You are done. You no longer work here. Please get out of my lighthouse now. The assistant searched for some clue in the lighthouse keeper's face, but found only a level stare. The Seekers of Karmot were just as silent and ineffable. He frowned, gathered his possessions, took one last look at his old Vidalcan mentor, and left. I'm sorry, and goodbye, thought the lighthouse keeper as his assistant walked out of his life. We're back to Naya. Goddamn, y'all. Hopping around like rabbits. I need a stretch. Whew. Okay. Johnny knew Tenok's mother. Oh my god. Kimamotl. Yeah, it's a Kimamotl or Chimamotl. I'm guessing Kimamotl. She was a suspicious old witch, a thin, gray-furred jaguarig, I don't know, who rarely left her lair in the hills high above the den. She had always wanted her son to become Ka, and therefore had always hated the popular leader, Jazal, and by extension, Ajani. Her schemes rarely worked because Tenok was so unlikable, but still, she vowed that before her bones withered away, she would see her son as leader of the Pride, whether that was due to a mother's twisted love or a streak of power lust in her own heart. Ajani could only guess. Knowing that Tenok was likely to have claimed leadership of the Pride, Ajani's steps were quick. He knew that the steep path to Kimamotl's lair would be riddled with spells and traps, but he didn't care. Thorny snares snapped at his ankles and tripped him prone, but he tore through them with his claws and moved on. Ward spells of sun-bright incandescence blinded him, but he blundered ahead with his hands on the rock face until his vision returned. When he sensed a presence, though, he stopped. A thicket of dry brush hid the corner of the next switchback up the hill. A perfect place for an ambush. If Kimamotl or one of her protectors was waiting for him, then she would attack him there. He approached the hiding place of dry hedge slowly. He took out his axe and shined the flat head of the blade against the fur of his forearm. He tilted the axe over the broad patch of brush, using the axe as a rough mirror. Nothing. No one was hiding back there, and yet he was almost sure he had felt something lurking at that point in the trail. The thicket did something that surprised him. It stood up, crackling and popping as it unfurled its arms and legs of jagged wood into a roughly humanoid shape. It wasn't a hiding place for Kimamotl's guardian, Ajani thought. It was Kimamotl's guardian. It was some kind of elemental, and judging by its size, fully half again. What? Judging by its size, fully half again as tall as Ajani and broader in frame. It was the result of a powerful summoning. The thicket elemental lunged at Ajani, and a great thorny arm swiped down at his face. Ajani managed to block most of the blow with his axe, but the wooden barbs dragged thin cuts down his arm. Ajani swung into the elemental and chopped a few pieces of wood from its frame, but it seemed undeterred. Ajani backed away up the path, wondering if he could just get it to fall down the hill. As the elemental crashed forward again, Ajani ducked and spun past its legs, then shouldered into the beast from behind. It barely budged. The creature had sent out multiple woody vines into the rock face and held fast. The monster was going nowhere. The elemental swung around, landing a crushing blow on Ajani's stomach. Ajani fell back and had to scramble to hold onto the rock so as not to go tumbling down the crag himself. Ajani roared and his eyes flared in rage. In his mind, he saw past the elemental and saw the elements within it. It surged with streams of flowing life energy, but all around it was an even deeper, more primordial force. The huge monument of granite in which Ajani's pride had made their den. The rock pulsed with an energy of its own, boiling, angry, and immensely strong. Ajani's nerves tingled, feeling in touch with the peak itself. The essence of the mountain ran up and down Ajani's body, tangling with his own fury, building up inside of him. It felt strange, invigorating, but wild, untamed, as if he wasn't careful. No, if he wasn't careful, he thought, the power might overcome his ability to control. The elemental erupted in flame. Hey, now we can set shit on fire. You would set that shit on fire. Do I have any? No, that's the Seaside Citadel is I thought it was banned, but I don't remember. I can double check. I have technology. Yeah, it's banned. It taps for blue, white, and green. So it is a bant. A bantewante. Sorry. Let's see here. I love this shit, sorry. I'm also looking up to see what color is Arcane Sanctum. Tap for. There it is, white, blue, and black, right there. Boy. Itchy. Oh, that's better. There we go. Alright. We're back on Esper. Have you ever been a Telemann before? Asked the male Vidalkin, one of the seekers of Karmat visiting the lighthouse. No, said the lighthouse keeper. But you know what one is. Yes, a mage doll, a living puppet. A willing instrument of mind control performance, corrected the Vidalkin. What are you going to have me do? Are you willing to participate? Willing? Your capsule says I have to. It is impossible to create this kind of performance with an unwilling Telemann. If you refuse, we will be unable to use you. You have completely free will in the matter. That is, traditionally, entirely the Telemann's prerogative. But this says you'll take away my lighthouse and send me to court if I don't. That is only a detail of the fine print of the injunction. You needn't worry about that clause. It rarely applies. What the fuck? Does it apply here? That is all beside the point. If you are willing to participate, are you willing? If I agree to do it, you'll have complete control over me. I won't be able to back out. The mentalist and the Telemann instrument cannot achieve proper unity without complete surrender of the will. What are you going to have me do? It's a perfectly routine measurement of sea currents off the coast here. If it's so routine, then why do you need me? If you do not wish to participate, it's entirely your prerogative. The lighthouse keeper felt an ugly tangle of emotions rise inside of him. His heart felt like it was being pummeled by hammers of fear and anger, but emotions like those did not befit an Esperite. With a few long breaths, he let the feeling subside. I'm willing, he said. Thank you, said the Vidalkin seeker. When shall we begin? Immediately. Okay, so it seems like we're going back and forth between Ajani and this lighthouse keeper on Esper. Close that one. Either way. Back to a Ron Jeremy. Ajani felt power seething inside him as he watched teeth of fire spread along the elemental's body, and its thin, woody vines blackened instantly. Its tendrils attached to the rock face burned and broke, and its limbs flailed as it fell. Ajani hugged the cliff face close and let the burning mass of bramble careen past him and down the hill. It slammed into the ground somewhere far below, leaving a smoky trail behind it. It was a moment of glory. Ajani was a fierce warrior, but never before had he been able to throw his ferocity directly at his enemy in the form of a spell. His gifts had always come in the form of the granting of power to others. If somehow perceiving the ineffable nature inside another person and encouraging it to come out, he could heal the body and steal the soul for the good of the pride. He could even help the pride defeat its enemies by reinforcing the bodies and souls of his allies. But never before had he been able to lash out with his magic directly at his foe, or turn his emotion, his anger, into fuel for such raw power. His head swirled with blood, and he drew deep, rapid breaths into his lungs. Please don't let this feeling go, he thought. He needed it. It was the power he needed to kill Jazal's murderer. He ran up the trail to the lair of... Oh my god, I keep stumbling on this. Lair of Kimamotl. Kimamotl's patchy snarls of gray fur were shrouded by a rough green robe. When she turned to see him, her expression went from shock to confusion to caution. You're alive, she said finally. No thanks to your son, said Ajani. She shrugged and flashed a snaggle-toothed smile. Accidents happen, she said. Accidents. I'm starting to wonder what other accidents you and Tenok might have been involved in. Accusation is a dull weapon. Don't come in here unarmed. I know you're guilty. Your son, in a moment of weakness, told me you knew about Jazal's murder. Guilt and knowledge, they are not kin. They wouldn't even recognize each other in the dark jungle. Why would I be the one to bring those creatures to our den? My goals are plain. For Tenok to come into his own and rule the pride as Ka. Why would I do anything to harm the pride he sought to rule? The thought turned Ajani's stomach, because it resulted in the Ka's death. You know there would never be an opportunity for your vicious, simple-minded son unless Jazal was out of the picture. You've always been a little cat. Your thoughts are too tiny with your mind that size. You'll never fit into it. Oh my god. You'll never fit into it what you desire to know. Then tell me. If you're not the killer, tell me what I need to know to find out who it is. She noticed the thin red lashes in Ajani's palms. You fought my elemental, she said, looking outside the lair. Why didn't it chase you up here? It perished. You destroyed it? But it's been months since I've had to visit her other than Tenok. It should have been hungry enough to swallow you in a single bite. Ajani's eyes narrowed. Someone visited you? Who? She peered at him. Her eyes widened. You're a storm of rage... Oh, wait. You are a storm of rage inside. Oh, you're a storm of rage inside, aren't you? My, you've grown, little cat. Maybe you do have room in your heart cage for the truths you're hunting. Someone visited you. You said before. Who was it? An old friend. And a hero, she said. Back to Esper. The spell felt surprisingly non-intrusive to the lighthouse keeper. If it was working at all, his thoughts were his own. His body moved normally. He was able to walk out the lighthouse door and toward the sea cliffs all under his own power. The mentalist, a young Vidalcan woman of the Seekers of Karmat, followed behind him, performing dance-like gestures, but he didn't see anything in her movements that indicated he was part of anyone's performance. Maybe they had failed at the spell without knowing it, or maybe he had overestimated the amount of control it conferred over him. Maybe he was free to do whatever he willed after all. Well, he willed after all. But it was when he decided to walk all the way to the edge of the sea cliffs that he realized the spell had worked as intended. He had never walked so close to the edge. The ragged coastline and the open sea joined there in a way that had always made him uncomfortable. He always admired the serene, gray regularity of the sea, but looking straight down the cliffs of Ott reminded him too much of a wild animal, of forces unshackled by reason. He was putting something on, he realized. One of the other seekers, the tall, wild-haired human man, had handed him a vest of some kind, and the lighthouse keeper had taken it and was putting his arms through it. His movements were so effortless, his kinesthetic experience so natural that he believed... Oh, hold on. Let's see here. That's better. All right. Oh, where are we? His kinesthetic experience so natural that he believed he was doing it all on his own, but he didn't want to do it. The vest was heavy. He willed himself not to put it on, but his body didn't respond. In a way, even his mind didn't respond. If he let himself stop concentrating for a moment, he could hear what sounded like his own thoughts attending to the tasks his body was carrying out. His volition, his self, was lost inside his mind. He was an audience to his own life. Stop it, he thought. I want to stop. I want the spell to end. His body didn't listen. As the mentalist traced intricate patterns in the air, the lighthouse keeper, her teleman, her mage puppet, continued to strap on the weighted vest. He tightened the buckles around his chest and between his legs. As he moved, hundreds of small reflectors hanging from the vest rotated and glittered in the light. Great sphinxes of Esper, he thought. What are they going to do to him? Don't worry, said a feminine voice in his head. It'll be over soon. It was the mentalist. Oh, telepathy now? He wished he could cover his ears or somehow block her out. Is this what all you do to all your telemans? Taunt them while they're helpless? No, said the voice, but your task is of vital importance. I must be in contact with your thoughts throughout the performance. Enough of this. You can have the lighthouse, he thought. Send me to the courts in Palandius if you want. Get out of my mind. Thank you for being a willing participant, the mentalist voice said. With that, the lighthouse keeper took a deep, involuntary breath and felt his body dive over the cliff into the bottomless gray waves of the sea. And we're back to Naya. God damn. Hold on. Itchy ear. Had to take out my earbud real quick. Okay. Okay. Back on Naya. Another day, another sin, thought Marisi. Oh, Marisi. Oh, right. There he is. Damn it. There we go. Sorry. I didn't mean to do the fucking weep, weep, weep. Another day, another sin, thought Marisi. It was shameful work for a Nakata warrior hero, a living legend of Naya, to do the errands of an otherworldly dragon. But what choice did he have? Marisi turned a small sphere of dark scales around and around in his hands. It glittered in the filtered Nayan daylight, glossy like a snake's body. It was heavy for its size and sloshed gently, as though it were filled with a thick liquid. It would be dark soon, so he resumed climbing down out of the misty mountain heights toward the lush valley of the Sacellum? I don't know. The realm of the elves. He was getting too old for such tasks. The pads on the bottom of his feet were cracked, and his bones complained at every step. The errand was as ridiculous as they always were, but it was better, all things considered, than being eaten by his draconic master. What would that feel like when he failed Bolus? Would the dragon's teeth puncture his life-sustaining organs so he bled to death, or would the palate crush him first? Or would he be swallowed in one gulp and die in the sizzling acid of the stomach? None of those, he decided. In truth, he would die of whatever ached in his bones, or some other disease of the old. But without any trace of his faculties, he had seen Bolus end lives before, and it was always by the destruction of the mind, not the body. It was cruelly impersonal. he thought. All the might and majesty of dragonhood, and Bolas would sit casually back on his haunches, stare down at his victim, and barely move as the deed was done. No snap of bones, no pillar of flame. Marisi's renown on Naya had come from being a hero full of rage and action, the force that broke the coil and severed the Nakatl people into warring factions. But when Marisi's end came, it would not come by the sword and claw, but by the aloof dismissal of his mental faculties at the whim of a dragon, and the revelation of the evil behind his legend. Maybe that was what being monstrous truly was, he thought, not devouring a person's body, but his legacy. He wondered whether success was really required on his task, which was a relevant concern, since there was no chance he would succeed. A little illusion magic would never motivate the elves to war. Killing was an easier errand, something with a beginning and an end, but his task was more complex. He would be a good, honest... but would a good, honest try buy him enough time to find a way to escape Bolas for good? Or should he just give up and sink into the jungle floor and let his bones finally rest? He was venerable by Nakatl standards. He had lived 2 lifetimes, one impetuous and full of passion, and the other solitary and full of regret. Both lifetimes had been puppeteered by Bolas. The otherworldly lizard had charmed him as a youth, encouraging him to instill chaos within a society of Nakatl, and he had threatened him as an adult, forcing him to instill further panic among the elves. Bolas wanted war, that was clear, but for what purpose Marisi couldn't divine. As he aged through the late stages of Bolas's plan, Marisi felt less and less motivated by the threat of death. "You've already taken my whole life from me, Bolas," he muttered. "Why do you think that telling me you'll take my last few years will make me bow down to you?" And yet, there he was, climbing down to an elvish shrine with a sphere of black dragon scale. He crested the last of the foothills at dusk, and the valley spread out before him. The relic of Progenitus was down there. He could just make out the torchlight of the shrine. It was time to do what he always did, deepen his sin and hope his soul survived. He held up the dragon scale sphere to his eye, wondering what the magic inside of it would do to the elves in the valley. Back to Esper. The lighthouse keeper sank very fast. The vest pulled his head down, and his body began swimming downward into the cold depths. He could see nothing ahead of him, but the reflectors on the vest twirled rapidly in the darkness, making him relatively obvious to anything that might be looking. "You went to a lot of effort just to drown me," he thought at the mentalist. She said nothing to him. He was alone. The pressure began to build rapidly. The water pressed against his lungs, making it hard to keep his single breath inside. It was painful. He wanted desperately to blow out the air, but his body kept his diaphragm unnaturally rigid, and his mouth shut tight. Down, down, down he swam, unable to save his own life. Something moved in the darkness. There were lights. A broad, gently curving surface, like the hull of a ship, slipped silently past him in the darkness. The fibers that made up his vest began to glow, catching the reflectors and immersing him in a corona of blue light. What was that thing? What's going on? Am I bait? Am I bait? No, am I bait? I'm bait. You're fishing. I love the sarcasm. I'm bait. You're fishing. Still downward he swam, his head tilted once to look behind him. His mind recoiled at what he saw, but his eyes didn't. The hulking sea creature was behind him, twin rows of small, rounded eyes that locked directly onto him. The beast's mouth was like the hatch of an enormous cargo ship, the jaw opening downward to wash him into its deepest holds. His limbs pumped frantically, sinking him deeper and deeper. He had never swum so fast before, or so far into the cold darkness. His hand turned back down to the depths, and he saw something else. The spire of an underwater mountain.
His body was swimming straight for it. It was encrusted with blue coral and razor-sharp barnacles. He was getting close enough that he could almost see the millions of tiny barnacle mouths and their wispy tentacle tongues. His breath was about to give out, or maybe it had already gone out, and some magic conjured by the mentalist was forcing a trickle of air into his lungs. His eyes stayed locked open, but he was losing his consciousness of what he saw. He was losing his consciousness of what he saw. I don't really get that. His head felt it was being crushed. He could feel the delicate bones in his ears bending painfully. Would his body keep swimming after he passed out from lack of oxygen, he wondered? Would he slam into the reef mountain below or be swallowed by the sea creature above? Stay conscious, the voice in his head commanded. So she was still watching, he thought dimly. What kind of mad game was it? His thoughts swam with weird imagery. The blue glow of his vest, the coral mountain, the lenses in the optics room. He saw his lighthouse broadcasting a beam of cool light around and around, out to sea across the land, out to sea again. How many ships had seen that light over the years? How many ships had he protected from that very reef? He saw the light sweeping past him, rhythmically flashing in his eyes. It beat like the awful pulse in his head, the sideways knifing of his heart against the pressure on his chest. Would his legacy be that of would his legacy be that sweeping light, or would his final task? The lighthouse keeper strained against a dark blot in his mind, but it wrapped its claws around him, and then, in a crushed moment between pain and darkness, he lost the fight with unconsciousness. He never felt the Leviathan's jaws close over him, closing also over the peak of the reef. He never felt his jaws crush the coral. He never felt its jaws crush the coral, breaking the reef free of the structure beneath, or felt gratitude that his death came without awareness. He never saw the Leviathan wander away afterward, leaving behind it an ancient underwater obelisk of smooth stone. The Vidalcan mentalist collapsed on the ground at the edge of the cliff, exhausted. She looked up at the long-haired human who had accompanied her, a man she had just met hours before. "The obelisk has been freed, sir," she said. "It is done." "Good. I'll inform Master Bolas," said Sarkhan. Yes, Sarkhan arrives. Now I get to officially show him. I think he's in here. Okay. Wait, never mind. Okay. Never mind. Excuse me. Sarkhan has been revealed. He was revealed like several chapters ago. I got Sarkhan mixed up with another guy. Excuse me. But yes, that's Sarkhan. He was revealed back when they were focusing more on Jund, but still. I can see the person I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. Anyway. Back to Naya. Or wait, whose perspective are we back? Oh, we're back to Marisi. It was dawn when Marisi finished the ritual at the relic of Progenitus. A worn disc stood upright on its edge, like an enormous sandstone coin. The carvings on its front face showed spiraling patterns of a long-necked, three-headed hydra. In the center of the disc glowed a single red shard of quartz, the gem that formed the central eye of the hydra god in the carving. Marisi planted the dragon scale sphere in the weeds behind the relic and chanted the words as Bolas had instructed. The dark-scaled globe gaped open into a hemisphere, releasing swirling purplish magic that chilled Marisi's soul. The tendrils of magic reached inside the relic, causing deep corruption that Marisi couldn't fathom. The deed was done. He left the dragon scale bowl to do its work and climbed out of the valley. Perhaps when he reached his mountain home again,
Bolas would be waiting for him there, ready for the news that the ritual was complete, and that he had some new task for Mauricio, or perhaps he would be alone with his misery. As he reached the first foothill out of the valley, he was startled by a white-furred Nakatl standing before him. "Hey, Maurici," said the white-furred cat, squinting at him, looking him up and down. "Is it you? No, you couldn't be." "No," said Maurici, "leave me alone." "Kimamatl said I'd find you here. Maurici the warrior hero, the berserker, the breaker of the coil. She said you'd have mahogany fur with black stripes as you do." Maurici's heart bounced. The white-furred Nakatl knew Kimamatl, the old power-mad witch who wanted her son to be Ka of her pride. Kimamatl was a connection to one of Maurici's many sins, and she had sold him out. Could the white fur know his secrets? "I must go," Maurici said. "You are mistaken. Maurici is dead." Kimamatl said that Maurici visited her. "If you are he," said the white cat, "then I have serious questions for you. My brother was killed in an attack of dark magic." They heard rustling in the valley below. A procession of elves, including a young, black-haired elf girl riding on the back of a gargantuan, pushed through the jungle. They were making their way to the knoll where the relic of Progenitus stood. Maurici heaved a breath. "What is your name, White Fur?" "Ajani." "Ajani, I am sorry to hear about your brother, but I am not the one you seek." In a flash, Ajani pulled out his double-headed axe and put a blade to Maurici's neck. His voice was even, but flecked with rage. "I think you lie. I think you were involved in my brother's death, and if you don't tell me what I want to know, kill me," said Maurici, suddenly tipping his chin, leaving his throat exposed. "What? Take my life, destroy me, and I will have died with a modicum of honor. It would be a mercy. Kill me. I cannot just kill you," said Ajani, pulling the axe away. "I must know if you're the one. You're Maurici, aren't you? You are the breaker of the coil, and my brother's the beast of Antali, some say," said Maurici. "Listen, my friend, there are forces at work here that you do not want to be involved in. This is much bigger than you realize. My guilt is great, but I am not your brother's killer. Your brother's death was of his own making." "Liar!" Ajani roared, raising his axe again. "It was! Your pride is wild Nakatl. Let it stay that way. Don't try to reach out to the cloud Nakatl as your brother tried to do. Don't ask dangerous questions or try to break down the master's plans. It's not about the coil. It was never about the coil. It's what, master? You'd better start making sense in a hurry," said Ajani. There was a tremor under his feet. The earth bucked and tossed like a skittish animal, shaking all the trees around them. It stopped as quickly as it had started, but the rumbling sound, a profound snarl deep underground, spread throughout the valley, echoing from hill to hill and on up through the mountains. The procession of elves down in the valley looked distressed. "Oh gods, it's happening," said Maurici. "Jazal," demanded Ajani. "What did you do to Jazal? Kill me, quickly, before it all happens." "Why? Before what happens? Tell me now!" Maurici's eyes flashed with fire. The strings inside his mind were snapping. "It doesn't matter. Even if you don't kill me, we'll all be dead soon," he snarled. "You'll perish, just like the rest of them. You can't stop him. The dragon is much too big for you. For me, for this world, for all the worlds. Nikobolas will consume us all." Another quake hit, far stronger than the first. The earth beneath their feet launched upward, sending Maurici and Ajani into the air. Maurici fell against a tree, knocking the wind out of him. The white-furred Nakatl tumbled down the hill trail into the elves' valley, where the elves themselves were toppled to the ground all around the ancient relic. Maurici didn't wait to see what became of the white cat, or to see what disaster he had wrought in the valley of Progenitus, or even for his breath to fully return. He took the opportunity to steal away into the mountains. Perhaps it was a sign, he thought. As he climbed into the mists, he would never get out from under the claws of Bolas. He could never be his own person. Maurici was nothing but the lies wrapped around his name, but at least he could take pride in one truth, that the lie had power.
The lie could still inspire the hearts of warriors, and he could still wield that lie like a sharpened spear.
We're back on Naya, but we are a Johnny now. I didn't actually expect Marisi to appear in the novel. That's cool. That's a cool little twist. Oh, we're about 5 minutes away from having to end stream, and I think we've got just enough time to finish this quick chapter real quick. Ajani's rolling fall was halted by a prone gargantuan, the same beast that Ajani had seen the elves riding before. Its body lay clumsily on the ground as its huge legs tried to find purchase. The beast harumphed in annoyance, though through its mouth harness. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" asked a feminine voice. Ajani looked up and saw that he was surrounded by elves. There were dozens of them, noble smooth skins with sharp features and elegantly swept back ears, all in the hand-embroidered robes of ceremony. The one who had spoken was a young elf girl with flowers in her hair, appeared to be in charge. "Oh, is that who I think it is? Is that the baby?" Ajani looked around for Marisi, but the old Nakatl had disappeared. Next, he checked for his axe. He spotted it nearby, but one of the girl's attendants stepped on it with his foot, shaking his head, and Ajani didn't reach for it. Instead, he addressed the girl. "Forgive me for trespassing, elves," he said. "I am Ajani of the wild Nakatl. I sought a Nakatl near here, but he escaped. When the earth shook, what happened?" "We do not know," said the elf girl. Her syllables formed a steady rhythm, not quite a melody, but with a rising and falling tone that sounded like a pulsing heart. "But now you must go. This is a holy place, not meant for your kind, and we have business here." Ajani beheld the relic of Progenitus. He had heard of the place, reported to be the resting place of the elves, Hydra god. Progenitus. The mound on which the stone disc rested had shifted during the earthquake. It stood precariously slanted. "I fear you are in danger here," Ajani said. In the underbrush near the relic, he spied a bowl of black dragon scale. It was the same kind of artifact he had found in the ashes of his den's home fire, mingled with Jazal's remains. "Is that yours?" Ajani asked, gesturing to the bowl. "It belongs to Progenitus, but no Nakatl is allowed near the relic," said the elf girl. "I don't mean your relic," said Ajani. "I mean that black bowl. If the elves knew something about it, then maybe it could help him find Marisi to learn his plans. But even if they didn't, the presence of the dragon scale bowl surely meant danger. One of the elves' attendants retrieved it. "Anima," he said. "It's a spell vessel." "What's a spell vessel?" Ajani asked. The attendant had called her the Anima. Ajani realized. He knew little of elf culture, but he knew that the Anima was a place of honor among the elves, a leader, but not like a Ka, more like a high shaman. The elves, particularly the Anima, were said to know far stranger mysteries than even the eldest Nakatl shamans. "If you're the Anima, then you might know something about it that I don't," said Ajani. The Anima took the bowl and inspected it with a frown on her face. Her eyes had a light gray haze over them. Ajani wondered if she could see at all, but then she looked straight at him. Coldly. "I am Mael, wild Nakatl Ajani. Yes, it's the baby! I love her! I have a commander deck of her! Look at this absolute cutie. I love her so much. I'm so happy she actually shows up, even for a moment. Oh, God bless her. She's so pretty. I love her. Mael the Anima. Oh, precious baby who is probably more intelligent about the world of Alara than any other character. My guess, anyway. I don't know, but God, I love her. The current anima, but I suspect you know more than I about this. A spell vessel is an artifact used to hold magical energies and to spread them. But I've not seen one like this. Have you brought it to our valley? No, said Ajani hastily, but I've seen one that's similar. It caused evil magic among my people. I fear it will do the same among yours. Or it already has, said Mael. How do we know that its magic hasn't caused these earthquakes? That you haven't planted it here to harm us or to learn our secrets? Ajani spread his hands. Listen, I don't mean to pry into your affairs. The vessel was not my doing, but I believe it was the Nakatl who I sought earlier who put it here. He's dangerous, and so I believe is this artifact. I think we should all leave this valley, and soon. We cannot and will not, said Mael. We have been culling the signs since the last moon, and we must stay here until we learn the truth. We must consult Progenitist for guidance here and now, so you must leave and take your artifact with you. They handed to Johnny the dragon scale bowl. Dismiss. Where are you? They handed Ajani the dragon scale bowl and his axe and sent him out of the valley. He wished they would listen. The oily interlocking scales of the bowl, a spell vessel, the elf had called it, were of otherworldly origin. Of that he was convinced. Ajani walked up the slope out of the elves' valley, despondent. Things were unraveling for him, day by day. Jazal was gone. The warrior hero of legend Marisi was alive, but was somehow involved with Jazal's death and a lying fraud. There were 4 worlds just beyond the edges of his own, and for reasons he feared to contemplate, his world was experiencing earthquakes greater than the footfalls of the gargantuans. He could chase Marisi into the mountains and try to find out more about his role on the night Jazal died. He could trudge back to the den and pore over some of Jazal's documents. After a moment, Ajani remembered. Among his frantic words, Marisi had said a name, Nicol Bolas. He looked down at the black-scaled bowl in his hands. Nicol Bolas? The black bowl in his hand? Just like weird connections that mean nothing. Oh boy. That's the hint, Nicol Bolas. It's like, I got it! No. That'd be so dumb. Oh my god. Alright. Ooh, I actually need to skip that. I don't think Bellwitch... God damn it! Okay, no one's in my chat. I'll go ahead and raid. Fucking... whatever. Chatting. Raid. Let's see who we'd like to raid, but first, while I'm looking through raid options, bye-bye VOD watchers, and I hope you enjoyed my read-through, even if it was interrupted by a bit of talking here and there. I'll see you next week when we continue our Sanic Marathon. Or if you're watching the playlist, then just click to the next video, I don't fucking know. Like and subscribe! Or whatever the fuck, I don't know. Bye-bye VOD watchers.